All right, very good. Well, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. Jeannie here from the corporate team here at Signworld, delighted to host this public webinar session. We have a few guests on the line already, just for a format and an agenda perspective. How this works is we're gonna have the owners first go ahead and introduce themselves and share a little bit about their background, their company today, and just some key points about their businesses. And then what we'll do for the participants is we'll go in a round robin format. And each of you will be invited to ask any question. We ask you to keep it to a single question each time. And each of our panel of owners will respond to that question. So you'll get multiple perspectives. We'll go in order, and if time permits, and it looks like it might be a smaller group today, you'll get a chance to ask multiple questions. So we'll just keep going as time permits and roll through the hour that way. So with that said, let's first start off with our owners and give them a chance to introduce who they are. So Mike, can we start with you?
Sure. Mike Voling, Georgetown Sign Company, located in Georgetown, Texas, northern suburb of Austin. Doors have been open just over 2 years. Let's see, I've got a 3,000 square foot facility. I've got 4.25 employees. The quarter is in the state of Texas. You have to have a master electrician on staff. So I've got him on staff as a part-timer. Let's see, 2021 sales projection, I'm going to be right at $500,000 this year. And then biggest customer or project, I've got a electrical contractor in the area, and we've done, let's see, we've wrapped an RV, probably about 6 different transit type vans for them. And they're just about to enter a rebranding. And so we're going to be rewrapping about 30 vehicles, including the RV we just did like 3 months ago. And then background career, I've got a strong sales marketing background. I was involved in traffic signal control for many years, taking all those cameras that you see at all those intersections. You can blame me for it. But they were there to get you through the light faster, not to give you a ticket. And then I've got, some educational background. I'm a mechanical engineer by training, got a master's degree from the University of Texas, basically an MBA in entrepreneurism. And I'm about 6 months away from having my doctorate in business administration and strategy and innovation. All while starting a sign company during COVID.
Yeah, very ambitious. You must love learning.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. Corbin, let's go to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Corbin Rowley, and I own Timpanogos Custom Signs in Provo, Utah. This is kind of a secondary market in Utah, south of Salt Lake City by about an hour to get you geographically aligned. I've been in business for just 9 months. I opened my doors in April of this year, and my sales projection for 2021 is $265,000. Let's see, what else you want to know about me? My facility, the facility is 2,500 square feet. I have just a single employee, but I use temporary help in a network of subcontractors. My biggest customer or biggest project, what I'm loving about this is they keep getting bigger every month. So Ken, this is precursor to Monday where I was going to share some really good news, but I closed a $60,000 pylon sign, kind of a refurb, where I'm adding electronic messaging centers and redoing some sign faces and a pylon sign pole cover. And I collected the $31,000 deposit check yesterday. So that was really exciting. The biggest project that I've completed to date, if I can change my background a little bit, I was playing around with this. So this is a set of channel letters, 2 sets of them on both sides of a custom jewelry store. And that one was about $25,000. My background, so I'm a PMP certified project manager and operations director. For the last 12 years, just before opening this business, I was in the trade show industry. So producing trade show exhibits, museum exhibits, retail build outs for Fortune 500 companies. Really loved that, but we know what happened to the trade show industry with COVID, and it prompted me to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And here I am, a member of Signworld, so I love that. That's about it. Oh, husband, father of 5 beautiful children. Probably the most important thing I do and am.
Love that. What are the ages of your kids, Corbin?
My oldest is 11 and my youngest is 3. So I right now have 4 children in elementary school. It's wild.
Wild is a perfect adjective. I love it. All right, very good. Thank you, Corbin. Larry, let's go to you next.
All right, I'm Larry Foster. I'm the owner of Signs and More, and I'm located in Troy, Michigan. I have been in business now for 21 years. I'm in my 3rd building. I started off in 1,700 square feet. I moved to a 4,000 square foot building. And then about 11, 12 years ago, I bought my own building, and that is 8,000 square feet. We are currently, we have 12 employees. We need a couple more, but we're getting by with the 12 that we have. We'll do about $1.7 million this year. My biggest job, last year, we did an entire school system from the high school, middle school, and all the grade schools, redoing all of the signs in all of their buildings. And that was just under $150,000 for the one invoice. And my background, I came out of retail. I worked for Kmart when that was a company. I worked for them for 27 years, going through different management positions at store level, managing 4 stores, districts, regions. And the last 10 years, I was in the corporate office. And when I left Kmart, I was the vice president of operations for the company.
Very good. Larry, isn't Kmart the blue light special?
It was.
All right.
Once upon a time.
That's what I think of when I think of Kmart. Very good. Thank you very much. Dan, I believe you're representing Jack today.
That's what I just found out. I am filling in for Jack. So those of you that don't know me, I am Dan Werner. I'm the VP of Operations here with Signworld, but I actually started out working in our family's Signworld location that started back in 1995 and ran through 2006. At that point then, Jack, who is the president of the company, he and I had joined the corporate team and have been here on the corporate side ever since. But with our operation running it for the 11-year period, when we started at about 1,800 square feet of retail space. The model sort of changed a little bit there in our business tenure, but ended up being in just under 5,000 square feet of commercial space. When we sold the business, we were doing 1.4 million in about 1.4 million in annual revenue, had a staff of 11, and dealt with a pretty regular core of employees, 8 of those employees being with us for a 7-year stretch. So it's a low turnover, at least is what we dealt with, and we see that pretty regularly with a lot of owners as well. And I guess I missed our biggest, let's see, our biggest customer. We had a few of them. One of the biggest was Subway restaurants. We did signage for about 114 Subway locations throughout Southern California, to the tune of a couple $100,000 worth of work per year. So it was a pretty regular repeat customer for us for about a 7-year stretch.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. And besides our panel of owners, we're also privileged to have the founder of Signworld join us today. He'll offer some perspectives from time to time as appropriate. Ken, can you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Okay, thank you, Jeannie. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm Ken Kent. I founded Signworld it'll be next month, 34 years ago in Honolulu, Hawaii, in about 2,500 square feet. People ask, why did I go into the sign business? And I wanted to make a simple product. I wanted to have a business that was a clean business as opposed to some dirty and messy. I wanted to have regular hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And most importantly of all, I wanted to have few employees. So the beauty of our business, for those who are our guests today, If you want to get back to making that old corporate salary, $150,000, $200,000 a year, in our business, to make $200,000 a year, the benchmark is you only need 4 sign makers working for you, maybe an administrative person. So 4 to 5 people. That's what's so great. And if you ask any business owner, why are you successful? I think that most of them, the first thing they'll say is because I have a great team of people working with me, working for me. So to build a small team is what I really wanted to do. Jeannie, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, now's the good stuff. It's time for our participants to ask their questions. Again, we'll give each of you an opportunity to do so. We'll ask you to keep it to a single question to allow time for all of you to at least have one. If time permits, we'll go around again until we get to the top of the hour. So with that said, I'm going to go in order of when you joined the webinar. So Roger Jeffries, you're the first to join in today. Go ahead and take yourself off of mute and ask your first question and share with us, please, where you're from.
I'm Roger Jeffries. I'm from Travis County, Texas, Austin, not far from Georgetown. And actually, though, I was telling Ken that I'm interested in having a business in Fort Worth, which is about a couple hundred miles north. That's where I'm from. I do have a question about how you manage or how you approach competition. So Ken showed me a map of where other Signworld places were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I noticed they were mostly all in the northern suburbs, which are, new areas. And there was nothing in Dallas or Fort Worth proper. And that's where Fort Worth is where I'd like to be. And my thought was, well, you know what? There's probably a lot of established companies there already. So my question is to you, I don't know what your market is like in your various places, if you have a lot of competition, but how do you approach that?
Great question. First question is competition. I think that's usually a 1, 2, or 3. So I love kicking it off with that one. Larry, you live in Detroit, Michigan, lots of Signworld owners and other sign operations in your market. How do you approach competition?
Yeah, I think you'll find any market is going to have a lot of sign companies, and I have 200 sign companies in a 20-mile radius of my building. What's great about this industry is you're not looking for hundreds and thousands of customers. You're looking for a small base of customers that have an appetite for signage. They come back to you every week or every month or whatever it is, but they keep coming back to you. And so you're not trying to take 10, 20, 50 customers away from someone else. And the way you do it is just through good old-fashioned customer service, and you deliver what you say. If you tell somebody you're going to have a quote by tomorrow, you have to have that quote done by tomorrow. If you get the job and you tell them it's going to take a week, you need to get the job done in 1 week. And they count on you, they depend on you, and your business builds from that.
Larry, let me interrupt. To validate the repeat business, what % of your business comes from your top 20 customers?
Top 20, probably close to 90%. It's okay. I usually say, my business is 80 to 85% repeat business, but if I go all the way to 20, it's probably close to 90%. Okay,
so you don't need hundreds or thousands of customers. You need a good core of 20.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's a very good qualifying question. Mike, let's go to you. Georgetown, busy area.
Yeah, we're fastest growing market in the country. So we're booming here. I've got a unique view on competition. I don't worry about them. I let them worry about me. And it honestly, like Larry's just saying, you take care of the customer, you do your stuff, you execute, you're going to get the business. And if they're shopping you, they're going to go after the lowest price, and I don't want to be that person. And as far as the Signworld people around here, they're not my competition. They're resources. Helen McKinstry is one of the closest ones to me right here in North Austin. She's a great resource. I ping things past her. She pings things past me. If I'm out of stuff, I call her. If she's out of stuff, she calls me. In fact, my installation person for electrical signs is Texas Custom Signs. I think they're the second largest Signworld company, and they're here in Austin, and they are one of my key partners. So Signworld, not competitive. I mean, yeah, you'll compete occasionally and you won't even know it. But I don't treat them as competitors. I sure don't see them that way.
Very good. Thank you. Corbin, first year in business. How did you think of competition when you got started and how are you finding it?
So similar to Larry and Mike, I don't really consider them competition. I did take Signworld's advice and I went around and I met several of the other sign companies in my area, and it's been nothing but positive. In fact, I've received a few referrals and leads from these other sign companies, Signworld or otherwise, and very similar to how Mike described it. There's a Signworld owner that's within 5 miles of my location, and we share our resources. He's got a little CNC machine. I send projects over to him when I need it. Another one up in Salt Lake, and they've sent me leads. It's been a really wonderful network, and I haven't felt the impact of competition as you would describe it in other industries.
Very good. Thank you. I see we have Jack who joined. I don't know if you're going to jump in on this question right away, Jack, or you want Dan to answer it. It's on competition. How'd you find the competition in your markets, and what'd you do about it to be successful?
You know, my closest Signworld to me was 4 miles away, the other side of the freeway. But he was really more interested in banks and schools, where I was more restaurant and retail. The types of customers we entertained were different. So you really learn to fit in, and we're more collaborative than we are competitive. We need each other's help and support more than we need to take away a customer.
Very good. Ken, anything to add?
It's all been said very well. Nothing to add.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Craig Wysong, if you can take yourself off mute, introduce yourself, where you're from, and go ahead with your first question, please.
Hi, Craig Wysong from Bonaire, Georgia, which is in the middle part of Georgia. And my question is what typically are your terms for your account receivables? What kind of deposits do you require when you have a project out there? And then what are your terms?
Great question. Important for cash flow, especially when you first start. Let's start with you, Corbin. First year in business, what are your current payment terms you have with your customers?
You bet. And I really love how Jack and Dan and Ken have coached us on this, because it's been very important. My terms are that I require a 50% deposit just to start the project. That includes before design or proofing. And then my terms are, I have 2 sets. One, for most projects, I require the remaining balance at the time of delivery, installation, or shipping. So I really don't have any accounts receivable for that. And my customers, they don't give me much problem on those terms at all. They understand it. The second set of terms that I use for very large projects, I also include a 25% progress payment tied to some milestones with my fabrication, just to make sure that I'm on the positive side of the cash flow at all times.
Well trained. Well trained.
Textbook.
Textbook.
All right, very good. Thank you, Corbin. Mike, let's go to you next.
Yeah, for most jobs, 50% down with order, 50% upon completion. There are jobs I've taken. I've got a big one right now with Texas Department of Motor Vehicles. Paid in full upon completion, net 30. But I know I'm going to get it. It's a state agency. Very common how they do business. I went into it, eyes wide open. I've got another $8,000 order with ERCOT, which is a big energy grid provider, the one that almost failed in February here. They say, hey, we normally pay in 30 days, but we might be able to do 15. I go, if you can do 15, I'm good. Again, public entity and so forth. There are some national sign companies I work with. They usually do pay 50%, and then I get a check afterwards. But for the large bulk of what I do, yeah, it's going to be 50 down, 58 later. There are certain entities that it is on terms, but I go into it knowing it, and I know who they are. I had a $25,000 order from our bank, which is a large regional bank, co-owned by Nolan Ryan. He's a neighbor of mine. The president of the bank lives right next door to me. I knew I'd get my money. So, but was that one cutting it close on cash flow? You betcha. But that's just the educated decisions you get to make as a business owner. You get to choose, do you want to extend credit for that order, or do you going to need money up front? That's a business decision.
Thank you, Mike. Larry?
Well, with all large orders, we get a 50% deposit up front. Our regular customers, the everyday customer that is coming back, that's part of that 80%, for the most part, I don't require a deposit from them. They are on 30-day terms, and that's handled that way, and they're always within the 30 days. Any new customer, if it's more than $150 and it's a new customer we've never done business with, we require a deposit from them. If it's under 150, we do not have a deposit for them.
Very good. Thank you. Jack, anything to add?
I think it's pretty well said. You know, in the beginning, it's the deposit and balance due on completion. But as you get into corporate accounts, repeatable customers, ones that you've built a relationship with, and you're not after lots of them, but those handfuls that you have, you will start collect terms on it rather than that. But in the beginning, when you're worried about cash flow, it's deposit and balance due on completion.
Very good. Thank you.
Jan, I think one thing to add to that too is, Craig, you get to assess the risk in the quoting stage. So based on the payment terms, the longer the terms that the client requests, the more you can increase the price in a customized cost plus pricing world. So if you would traditionally do a net 30-day term and accept that at a traditional price, if they require net 60 or net 90, you can always increase that price to then go back to them after to either increase your margins in the long run, the risk that you're taking on, or you can offer them a discount to pay with quicker terms. And you have the ability to kind of play with that quote as you need to.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. We'll go to our next participant. Luis, if you can take yourself off of mute, share where you're from, and go ahead with your first question, please.
Sure. Thank you very much. Luis Martinez here. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm planning to move to the RTP region in North Carolina and probably set my business there. My question is similar to the first question. I'm talking about market saturation. How do you perceive the market? There are new customers all the time. Are they constant customers? I understand that some of them are, but how do you feel about the future potential for this business, for this market?
Very good. So not thinking about competition, thinking about market opportunity. Mike, do you feel like the business of the sign industry is in a good place, or how do you view it?
It's a lot better place than it was 18 months ago, I'll tell you that. But no, I mean, this year's in 21, first of the year, it's like the spigot opened up. I mean, it's been running hard ever since then. And the week before, last full week before Thanksgiving, I went on vacation. And my staff was telling me the phone's never rung off the hook more than it ever did that week. So the moral of the story is more vacations. But no, this is a growing market. I mean, you're seeing huge demand increases, at least in my market, in vehicle wraps, signs. I don't think there's any sense of market saturation or any sense of plateauing or anything like that. But I would put a caveat on that. That may be some regional bias. So if you're in an area that's declining, maybe you might see it. But if you're in an area like Austin or Raleigh or some of these other high growth areas, boy, high growth equals new construction, new businesses. People are upgrading their businesses, moving. They need to rebrand, resign. I don't think there's saturation at all coming in my near future.
Thank you, Mike. So Detroit's not necessarily thriving as well as Austin or Raleigh might be. Larry, how's the business in Detroit?
You know, it's very strong. We're having a really good year. We've had continuous growth throughout the years. And I have been around long enough that I've seen a couple of those dips where, you know, you've gone through that cycle where overall business and commerce is down. And the sign business actually comes through that very strong. Your business may change. Instead of customers coming out and buying a new set of channel letters, the electric ones that light up on the front of their building, they're buying lower ticket signage to get more business from the people that they have in their business, in the store, driving by. And that type of business increases so much, it offsets what we're losing on the bigger ticket jobs. So it's a little bit safe from all those dips that you hear in other industries.
Very good. Thank you, Larry. Corbin, brand new. What's your thoughts about the future potential of signs in your market?
Really untapped for me. And part of the reason why I chose Provo, not only because my family lived here, I was in Las Vegas when I decided to move states and open my business here in Utah, but Provo as an area in Utah Valley, just south of Salt Lake City, is ranked 1 and 2, depending on which survey you go through, as far as growth and potential. The new construction is incredible here, both commercial and residential. A lot of growth. Basically, since my website took hold and my Google Maps and search results started to find its way at the top at number 1 and 2, the phone has been ringing off the hook, and my sales projections, I've exceeded targets the last 3 months by significant amounts, which has been wonderful.
Thank you, Corbin. Jack?
You know, it's a topic we've talked about for years, and I've been at it 26. Ken's been at it over 30. We're putting signs in places we never imagined before. If a business puts up a sign, the competitor across the street needs a bigger sign. But we're putting signs in places that we never ever imagined. We'll never ever get to saturation.
Very good. Ken?
You know, focus on the fact that 98% of all the signs in the world are inside the building. When you're driving in your car, you're only looking at 2% of the signs in the world. So take all those buildings around you, all those high-rise office buildings that are on an average 5-year lease. Theoretically, that means that the property manager is changing 20% of those signs every single year. So the market is huge, and it always will be. As the population grows, so does the number of businesses grow, so does the need for more signs.
Very good. Thank you, Ken. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Ken brought up a great point. The number of businesses continues to grow. So based on a recent Yelp study, they found that in the first 9 months of 2021, there were 439,000 new businesses opened. That's 6,000 more in the first 9 months of 2021 than in any year prior to the pandemic. And that's going to continue to grow pretty rapidly based on this great reflection that we've been in from COVID and what that caused with people being at home. So new business startups are going to continue to grow, which means the need for signage is continuing to grow faster than our industry's ability to service it.
Great statistic. Love it. Thank you, Dan. Doug, please take yourself off of mute, introduce yourself, where you're from, and go ahead with your first question.
Hi, Doug Edge from Northeast Philly, Lower Bucks area of Pennsylvania, and I'm just in sponge mode right now, so I appreciate the invite to join you guys today. But yeah, thanks a lot.
Did you have a question for the group, Doug?
No, not really, not yet. You know, we just spoke yesterday, so I really don't know yet what I don't know. I'm just listening to all the other questions so far, but thanks for the invite.
No worries. If you have a question, let us know. We'll come back to you at the end. Joe, if you can take yourself off of mute, introduce yourself, where you're from, and go ahead with your question.
Joseph Shanuda. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. And the question, actually, a part of the question, according to Dan and Ken's last response, what is your take about most of the online businesses that are taking over the traditional businesses as far as growth? I understand, you know, the Yelp study for 2021, but the way it's been looking in the last number of years, it looks like mostly online retails is taking over the traditional brick and mortar retails.
Okay. So Corbin, let's start with you. Brick and mortar, somewhat in a unique place now. Do you feel like there's still lots of opportunities? And if you're seeing new opportunities popping up, what kind of businesses are those?
Well, in my market in particular, and I think in the majority of the country, face-to-face connection is coming back strong. And that requires signage. And the customers that I end up working with are ones that want to meet with me in person. They might have found me by doing an online search or looking at my website or my competitors, but over and over again, the customers that end up choosing to work with me and Timpanogos Custom Signs are those that appreciate me coming to their location, meeting with them in person, performing a site survey, and as I think Larry and Mike both described, doing what I say I'm going to do when I'm going to do it. So I think there will never be a time where the online presence replaces the need for connection, personal connection.
Thank you.
Gina, if I can jump in real quick, Joseph, just to clarify your question, are you talking more to the ability to service customers through e-commerce for signage, or how e-commerce has affected the need for signage?
Yeah, the e-commerce is affecting the need for signage for brick and mortar locations, basically.
Very good. Thank you for the clarification. Mike, let's go ahead with your response, please.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. And there's no doubt online business can be quite effective. But I will also say this. People want something, they want it now. And they're going to get it from their local store. They're going to have it from being able to get in the car, go get it. And then they need to be aware of where to go get it. And that's where science comes into play. It's kind of interesting. Even earlier today, we were on and this is a little off, but not much. I was on a mastermind call with a bunch of other owners, and Houston Graphics out of Houston, they're actually putting in place an online store so they can actually leverage some of that. In fact, I was talking with them this morning. They're like, yeah, money came around. There's $5,000 worth of orders waiting for us. So there's ways as a sign company to leverage that in addition to your social media, Google organics and all that jazz. But the growth of online stores is not diminishing the growth of local entrepreneurs. And it's those local entrepreneurs that you need to tap into. And they understand the value of advertising, the value of getting the clients into their office or into their space. And it's also part of their brand. So it's an extraordinarily valuable piece of what they do. And I don't think there's a huge imminent threat coming from online presence companies compared to the local small business.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Larry?
Well, I've often said I may lose a job to the internet, but I'm not going to lose a customer. Everything we do is custom, and you can't find custom on the internet. You're taking a template and you can get whatever that template says, you can get that made for you. But we are all custom, and I think that in order to provide custom, it's got to be done locally. And as Corbin says, we're out every single day seeing those customers and talking about their needs, and that's what that customer is looking for.
Larry, do you see like the number of businesses that need signage changing though, because there's more online stores and consumers are changing their shopping habits? I think that's part of the question too.
In the Detroit area, I think most people know, Detroit is very much a shrinking market. So today I am in a market that's getting smaller and smaller. I have never had a decrease in 21 years, 1 year over the next. The business is out there, and I think Ken said it, or Jack said it, there are more signs today in so many different places that you never thought of before. And that's what it takes to keep this business going, and it's going to continue. I'm not worried about that a bit.
Thank you, Larry. Jack?
E-commerce or Amazon is taking some business away from big box. There's no doubt about that. There's also so many other industries that they don't tap that are service industries that need vehicle wraps and customer service signage that has increased things. Where companies used to put a corporate logo on the wall, now we're doing digitally printed wallpaper through the entire building, giving culture walls. So every time something disappears, something else adds to it. It's just like digital signage has taken away some of the static signage, but it's still that much of the whole scheme of the world because so many things will never be digital signage. So while there's parts of it, the rest of the scheme is so much bigger that you can't worry about that segment.
Very good. Ken?
Joe, I assume you're, when you say internet, you're talking about companies like Amazon and eBay, am I right?
Correct. Online.
Well, Joe, you need to know that for many, not one, not two, not three, but for many Signworld owners, Amazon is their largest customer, their largest project, or eBay or whatever. We have Signworld owners that have done single projects for Amazon that in the range of $350,000 to $500,000. Mike Voling, I think you can validate what I just said. Don't you know some Signworld owners around you who have done things like that? Anybody?
Yeah, I can't say it for sure, but it would not surprise me at all.
Jack, go ahead.
Carl and Twyla in Cincinnati did a $430,000 Amazon project. One of our owners in Dallas did, I think, 30 different Amazon warehouses. Lots and lots of that business. And you're right, there are thousands of signs within those facilities that they need for HR, for safety, for project management.
So Joe, as Larry said, when one opportunity goes away, another one comes up. So wouldn't you rather take care of your local Amazon location for $450,000, or would you rather take care of that shopping mall that's going downhill and maybe will close in another year or so? Opportunities change.
I'm with you on the Amazon part.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Very good. Thank you.
I think something that's big to add to that is signs are not just for branding and marketing. They are also for chaos control and coordination and directional wayfinding type stuff. So that's sort of where some of that shift with e-commerce businesses has gone, is it's no longer there for marketing and branding, it's there for chaos control within the warehouse. And so that still has some repeatability to it. But it also goes to show too that while some large retailers are online and there are some small businesses that are going online and doing e-commerce, a lot of these big businesses, Amazon as an example, have also shifted back to traditional retail because they realize that that still plays a role, hence Amazon purchasing Whole Foods a few years ago to have a retail presence. And now they're opening Amazon stores. And that's kind of a desire and a push that they have as well to create that local push as well, as much as they're doing online. So there's always going to be that mix, but with those companies that shift to e-commerce, it's more the shift from branding and marketing to chaos control.
Very good. Thank you. All great points. Dan, let's go to you next. If you can take yourself off mute, introduce yourself, where you're from, and go ahead with your question, please.
Sure. My name's Dan. I'm from Dallas. I got a chance to speak with Dan Werner a couple days ago. I got two questions. One which was generated from a response from you guys earlier, which is you made a comment about COVID. So I'd like to know peak to trough, what are high sales to low sales post-COVID? Second question, I don't like selling. I've got a brother who's an awesome sales guy. That's not me, never done it. So would like to understand from the folks who have done this, are they just awesome, bring donuts and knock on doors and make, great calls kind of people, or not?
Great questions. Well, let's tackle the number one. Corbin, you just opened up this year, so we'll skip you since you really didn't have the front end of COVID or the before effect. Mike, before COVID, after you few years in business.
Yeah, so I opened my doors November 1 of 19. Great timing. March of 20, I was looking at a $40,000 booking month. It went from a $40,000 booking month to a $12,000, $13,000 booking month. It was scary, no doubt about it. I remember walking out the door, my key guy had his design computer with him. I looked at the buildings that I just kissed away several hundred thousands of dollars. But here I am, still living and kicking and screaming. But what ended up happening is I sent out a unsolicited proposal to a customer. Instead of making you one sign, how about I make you 10? And here's the price I can get you with quantity discounts. He said, yeah, do it. There's a $3,000 order. And then one of the orders I was counting on in March, he called me up out of the blue and says, hey, I'm ready to go. There's a $10,000 order. So April of 20 ended up being a record month, which shocked the hell out of me. And then May beat June, May beat April, June beat May, and you can see the trend. So it definitely changed the complexion of the business. Make no doubt about it. It changed the trajectory, but it did not change the end outcome. If anything, I would say one of the things I did in hindsight correctly, I didn't start chasing COVID business. I made a conscious decision, short-term win, long-term, it's going to deflect away from where I want to be. So I still focused on the type of signs and business that I wanted. And this year I'm going to do $500,000. As far as the second question on selling, yeah, I've got a strong sales background, but I'm an engineer by training. And how do I cover that? I be responsive, I be consultative. If I don't know the answer, I know somebody who does. So this is not a get out there, pound the pavement, cold call sales business. This is, you're going to have internet leads in the beginning, and you're going to jump on those. And even if you don't get them, guess what? You're learning something. But then as time goes on, your organic searches increase. My phone rings. Half the time it says, Google organic phone call coming in. Great. I know my search is working. But your repeat customers are going to come in. Why? Because you've established trust and rapport with the customer. You're not out there being a car salesman. That's not what the sales in this industry is. It's about being responsive and about having and following through. You do those two things, great things can happen.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Larry, let's first tackle the dip. You had not only COVID, but you were in business back in 2008 with a big economic recession. So you've had two storms hit your business. Tell us a little more.
And probably none worse than 2020 with COVID, because so many places were shut down. I went during that time from 12 employees, I went down to 4. And during that time, we continued to communicate with our customers. The volume was not there that we had previously been experiencing, but the jobs did continue. And as soon as we were able to, those jobs, we didn't miss a beat because we had been in communication with the customers. And our business did shift. We did a lot of COVID stuff. We did a lot of the plexiglass shields. We did a lot of signage that if it's an industrial customer, their factories needed signage. Every restaurant needed signage. They needed it put up, then they needed to take it down, then they had to shift it to something else. So there was a lot of business going on during that time. So we came through that very, very nicely. And then the sales background, that was the thing that scared me the most when I went into this business. I had no sales background, and I didn't want to have sales. My idea of sales is to drive around, see somebody with a crappy sign, and I have to go knock on a door and tell them I sell nice, shiny new signs. Well, that's not what it is. All you're doing, a need has been established by the customer, whether through your website or a referral. So they want you to come to their place. You go in, you find out what they're looking for. You're taking pictures, you're getting measurements, and then you're bringing it back I bring it to my design staff to come up with ideas. And it's the sales call is the most fun part of the job. It's what I was scared the most of, and it's by far the most fun.
Love that. Took your worst fear into the favorite part. It's awesome. Corbin, you weren't in business for COVID impact, but talk about the sales aspect of being a sign owner. Are you out there selling?
Dan, very similar to how you describe yourself. I don't consider myself a salesperson. I never have. I'm a project manager. I'm an operations director. I focus on systems and processes and people, and making sure that things are flowing smoothly. And that was my chief concern when I came in. As Dan and Jack can attest, I asked them and other Signworld owners, what is it like to sell in this industry? And what I found out is it's very much like what Larry and Mike have described. It's a very consultative process. It's finding out what the customer just needs and then helping them to fulfill that need. People call me or come off of my website. I don't do any cold calling, and I won't. I hate that with a passion, and I just won't do it. I won't hire anybody to do that for my company either, and it's not necessary from my perspective. The numbers have reflected that what we are doing with our leads and our repeat business is working.
Got it.
Love that. Thank you. Jack?
When we surveyed the Signworld organization, there were some that were impacted more from COVID than others, either based on their location and what the official criteria was for businesses opening, but all of them opened quite quickly afterwards and were up and running again. The ones that got hurt more were industries that were hurt more, whether they were deep with restaurants that had to do a lot of pivoting or doing a lot of high-rise commercial buildings where the buildings, they were starting to have people work at home. So they were impacted a little bit more than others, where there's others that ran right through it and didn't have any dip at all or had a dip for a month or two. But overall, I don't think our overall dip was more than perhaps a 10% number in the whole scheme of the whole organization, and back even stronger now. After 9/11, I was making God Bless America signs by the thousands. So you got to learn to pivot, as Larry did, through markets and learn to adjust to what it is. When we go to the business coaches that bring you to us, we're not asking for salespeople. Well, about 8%, 10% of our owners have a sales background. We're really looking for your operations skill set more than the sales side, because if you want repeat customers, you got to deliver the first product to get the second. In the long term, you're trying to find a lot of repeat customers. So it's that deliver what you promise mentality. Sales is convincing somebody to buy something they didn't need or want to buy. That's not what this is. As Corbin mentioned, as Larry mentioned, we're looking for customers where they have the need. We're saying, I can manage your project because I've got that background to manage your project. It's delivering what you promise.
Got it.
Thank you. We're going to go back to Micah. He would like to add to a comment on the COVID impact.
Yeah, a couple of years ago when I was doing the due diligence, just like you all were, one of the questions I was asking everyone is, how did they survive a downturn? And without fail, everyone that I talked to mentioned one of the greatest things was not having a royalty, not having marketing fees and all that other stuff. And several commented that their competition failed, went out of business because they had all that. So they were getting their money sucked out of their account the first of the month, whether they had it there or not, or had other obligations. And the lack of a royalty or marketing fee was a huge differential. I know for me, not having to pay that last year was massive. It's probably what kept me in business. So that's a huge advantage of the Signworld side model.
Gene, take a minute and talk about Mark Casson and his customer as a result of COVID and what happened to him and what that's resulting in.
Well, first I'll talk about the fact that he didn't sell this customer. So Jack's referring to an owner that we have in the Georgia market who was at a physical therapy appointment for his son who had an injury in sports in high school, sitting in the reception room wearing his, black mouth or big mouth signs t-shirt or logo on his shirt. And the receptionist noticed it and asked him, if he had a sign company, and he said he did. And she said, well, I need you to talk to my boss because we have some sign needs. Well, some sign needs was a small word for it. So this is a physical therapy company that due to COVID, it's a large conglomerate that's now buying a lot of independents where there's, 5 locations with this one, 10 with this one, 20 for this one. And they need to completely rebrand all these individual locations. Mark was a $2 million year last year. This is a $2 million customer for him in 2022, just this one order to support all these locations and their signage needs. So he's going to double his business. And it wasn't because he was out there trying to sell. He was just marketing that he's a sign owner and delivering great support and good service. So thanks for allowing me to share that story.
Great
All right,
story.
Yeah, it is. That's fantastic. We have one more participant who's not been given a chance to ask his question. Abrar, can you go ahead and take yourself off mute, introduce yourself, where you're from, and go ahead with your question, please.
So I'm Abrar from North Los Angeles area. And my question is, how steady is the work? Do you have, spurts of work coming in? Is it seasonal, or do you can keep your workforce at a steady level based on your business?
Great question. Corbin, have you seen any seasonality in the business since you started?
I wouldn't call it seasonality. I think it was just due to kind of starting up. Things were a little slow. I had a good month my first month when I started selling in May. The next month was down. I had an even better month the next one. The next month was a little down. And then since that time, it's been up, 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 and almost following kind of like that exponential bell curve. Presuming that it continues, I need to hire and hire quickly right now. So yeah, no seasonality, just growth for me so far in the past 9 months.
Very good. Thank you, Corbin. Mike?
Yeah, no, there's definitely some seasonality to it. Sometime in the next couple of weeks, things will slow down. Okay, fine. It lets me get caught up and get ready for the first of the year. I know last year, January 3rd, whenever we opened the doors up for the beginning of this year, man, it went like gangbusters. But the other interesting seasonality point, I remember being on a call with Don Conklin, who was one of the big owners in the Atlanta area. And we were meeting, give or take, about July 15th or so. And he asked all the owners, I think it was something for you, Jack. And he asked everyone, so things slow down a little bit the last few weeks? And everyone's like, yeah, what the heck's going on? He goes, how many of your customers are small business owners? Well, most. July 4th is one of the few times a year they can get away on vacations. Do you think somebody in their staff is making a big decision on signs with the owner not present? And sure enough, the next week, things went crazy because the owners are back, they're making those decisions. So that was the unexpected seasonality. I knew about the December one, but outside of that, now it could be, I'm in Texas. We do things year round here. Like I joked earlier, it gets too hot in August, but I'm not sure. Larry, you may have more seasonality up in Michigan, but boy, for me, it's just that first couple of weeks in July, I've learned to adapt to that. And then in a couple of weeks at the end of December. Other than that, pretty steady.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Larry?
Well, we do have 4 seasons, but we don't have seasonality. This business continues to run at a pretty steady level. The only seasonality that I will tell you will be probably the 7 days before Christmas up until probably about the second week of January. And that'll be the only time when you feel any kind of a lull. Other than that, it is full steam ahead.
I got to imagine you might appreciate that seasonality so you can have time with your family as well. So
Yeah.
Not necessarily a bad thing. Very good. Jack?
We'll also realize this is not a business where you take an order today and make it today. You typically have several weeks to several months worth of work in progress on your production board. So if you have a lull for a few weeks, all you're doing is getting closer to caught up and hopefully never caught up. My main sign maker in 10 years never ran out of work. My job was to stay ahead of her. So that's the whole plan of the business, is to be far enough ahead that if there is a pause, all you're doing is catching up a bit.
Very good. Thank you, Jack. All right, we've gone through. Sorry, go ahead, Ken.
On the flip side, Larry Foster, how much time off do you take a year?
Well, I get my share. I take a trip in February to Punta Cana. I take 2 fishing trips a year. I do a week fly-in fishing trip up in Canada. I take a week family vacation in June up in northern Michigan. I take time off around Christmas.
And how many days a week do you play golf?
Oh, I knew you'd get to that. I play golf 3 days a week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
So 2 business days a week you're playing golf?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
We just all want to be like you, Larry. Very
all
good,
doable.
very good. That's
It's all
right.
doable.
Let's go back to Doug really quick and just see, Doug, did you come up with a question for the group or still just listening?
Still just listening. I mean, there are quite a few questions that I have, but like you and I spoke before, it's probably putting the cart before the horse, just from the nuts and bolts of just day-to-day business, just business in general, and not just a sign business. But I can talk offline with you about some of those questions.
Okay. Well, let's open it back up to the rest of the group then. Joe, Abrar, Craig, or Luis, do either of you have another question you like? We got a few minutes left.
I got 2 questions to ask real quick. Investment in your first year, based on what the company base or your first assessment for the first year as far as investment, how much over you may have gone over that if you did? That's the first question. My second question is cash flow, or actually cash positive. When did you come up cash positive? Whether a month, a year, or 2? And if it's not too personal to ask, how much is that cash positive is?
Cash positive today?
Cash positive from the beginning of the business, from startup.
Okay, well, let's just start with the cash positive. Larry, if you can think back 20 years ago, how many months did it take you to become cash positive?
4 months was my break-even point, and then beyond that it was cash positive all the way.
How much money did you make the first year, Larry?
First year, maybe 50,000, 50 to 60,000.
Thank you.
Is that
Mike?
take home, or is that the total business?
No, that was his personal income.
Okay. Thank you.
After all expenses of the business. After all expenses of the business, his first year personal income, 50, 60,000.
Okay.
Mike, let's start with you. Cash positive one.
You know, it's kind of a strange question for me because I got hurt pretty bad on timing because of COVID. I probably had months of cash positivity starting in June, July of last year. So 7, 8 months in. But I've also had months where I've bled. It's just, I've been in investment mode because I'm trying to ramp up the business quickly. And that was a knowing decision on my part. You know, I could have managed it based on cash. I'm trying to manage on growth. So it's a different point of view. My goal is to get this thing to $1 million as quickly as I can, knowing that when I do that, my value that I'm going to extract out of the company is not from cash flow. It's from the value of the company. And I'll get multiples back on that. But that's personal decision. This year, I'm cash flow positive, which is a great position to be in. Not massively so, but I'm positioned myself quite nicely. And that's what I care about.
Thank you, Mike. Corbin, have you made cash positive yet?
Yes, so I went cash positive in September. So that was 4 months after I started selling in May. May 15th, I started selling, became cash positive around the 1st of September. Been cash positive each month since. I've not calculated when I will have gotten my investment back. I still have to figure that out.
Very good. Jack, anything to add on cash positive?
You know, our
Back to the other question.
average is 6 months, some a little bit sooner, some a little bit longer. The other question that you should also ask is, what kind of net bottom line are you able to generate? Larry, on your sales, what's your net bottom line percentage at this point?
Larry,
there you go.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that. I run usually between 26, 27% net.
On $1.7 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Mike?
My average gross margin, I'll explain it that way. I'm still hanging about 65, 68% on $500,000 in sales.
That's your gross, but what about net profit?
I need to take a closer look at my books this year. Probably 10%. But like I said, I'm in investment mode.
Corbin, do you know what your net profit margin is yet?
Yeah, in the months that I've been positive, it's been about 15 to 16% net.
Okay, very good. And go back to the original question that Joe also had on, was the 30,000 working capital, did you find that to be enough to just get to cash positive, or did you have to go and have more funds? Corbin?
Number one, don't touch your operating capital for any reason except for operating. I made that mistake, as Dan and Jack both know, and we had some really intense conversations, and just they're super helpful when you need them. Everybody dives in and helps one another around here. So I just want to point that out. I would recommend that you maybe take more than the $30,000 operating capital. I'd recommend maybe 40, 50 if you can swing it, just to be comfortable.
Okay. Mike, was 30,000 working capital enough for you?
No, but again, I came from a different perspective. You know, one of the things I've learned throughout the years of business and business school is expenses always happen faster than you think. Revenue always happens slower than you think. So I wanted to go in with the mentality of not having to worry about it. Now, I also got hit by COVID, which slowed down my growth, which should have been those time periods. So I did have a investment I threw into the company again in August or so of last year. But you know, that's fine. You know, luckily I can afford it. So, but like I said, it's an investment, and I've kind of reconstituted the company, and we've got the right people now, the right positions, and we've become pretty darn effective at what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. Larry?
Well, when I started, it was a less number than 30,000, I can assure you. But the number was, I'm sure, comparable, and I did not need to dip any deeper than that. That was sufficient for me.
Very good. Jack, anything to add on that?
Like Larry, the number was smaller then, but I did not tap any more. What the number recommended by Signworld was adequate. I think if you survey most Signworld owners, they would tell you the working capital we recommend is sufficient. At the same point, as Corbin and Mike have said, putting some extra in there, not expecting to need it, not hoping to need it, but at least you're not looking for it is prudent. So if you can put an extra 10, 15, 20 in, have it there. Because in the first year in business, the worst thing is to play defense instead of playing offense.
Very good. Ken, anything to add as we close up the session today?
Nothing to add, all well said.
All right, very good. Well, let me first thank our panel of owners, Larry, Mike, and Corbin. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to participate in our session today. We really, really appreciate you all. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend, decorating, buying Christmas presents, whatever might come your way this weekend. To our participants, we appreciate you joining in today and asking your questions. We look forward to future conversations with you to better understand if Signworld's the right fit for the next chapter in your life. And with that, want to wish everybody a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks for joining.